So I like to talk about the Casio Pro Trek PRW-61 as someone with a small wrist. Some might say the size of a fishing pole, you know, like one of those small ones, maybe out of bamboo. I've owned this watch for a while, and I want to share 4 pros and 2 cons and just some general comments on my experience with this watch. Just as a reference, I have a 6¼ inch or 16 centimeter wrist circumference and a wrist width or wrist table from here to here of about 2 inches. But first, let's talk about the boring stuff, the dimensions. So I got from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock, I got 40 millimeters. From the 9 to the 3, including the crown and a little bump, I got 48 millimeters. From lug to lug, I got 51 millimeters. In case you're curious on the actual glass, I got 35. And in terms of the strap, I got it starting at 22 and going down to 19.5. But why did I buy it? I want to support Pro Trek. I really like Casio's Pro Trek line. I picked up some in the past, and this is actually number 3. The PRG30 was a great pickup because of its size and legibility. The PRW35 just improved on everything with that watch, and it has a lot better comfortable strap. And although I don't really go hiking and use the ABC features on these Pro Treks, I find them to be much better than the G-Shocks. I know, maybe fighting words for some people, but I actually find these Pro Treks to be exceptionally good, especially the ones that are on the smaller end. I just hope that Casio continues to make more Pro Trek watches in the future in these smaller sizes, because I really do think they're a great option. All right, pro number 1, the lume. Now I can't speak for all PRW-61 models, but I really wanted the PRW-61LD because the dial of the watch is all lume. I don't think Casio has any other watches that are like this. And while the lume doesn't last particularly long, especially if you go outside and you bring it indoors, yeah, it's nice, but it's not great. It is pretty neat to see it in the dark. If I was a better watch channel, I would show you the lume, but the problem is my kids lost my light. So you're just gonna have to trust me. The entire face of this watch, it has a very nice glow to it. And this is especially helpful for when I'm sleeping, because as a dad with little kids, sometimes they wake up in the middle of the night and I don't know what time it is. And traditionally I used like the cheaper digital watches or even some of the other Pro Trek watches that have the tilt feature on it. But the problem is when the light turns on, it's pretty bright. What's great about this watch is because it has that lume face and the lume hands, I don't really have to turn on the light, which is here on the bottom. Like, I don't have to turn on the light to be able to see. I just can look at the watch face. Because it's glowing, I can tell what time it is. What's also a nice feature on this watch I found is that in case you do need like a little bump of like lume, you just hit the bottom light and you won't be able to see it here, but because it shows the light from the bottom, there's like a little extra glow. And that also helps you to tell the time if this hasn't been exposed to UV light. But that was a huge plus for this particular model. Again, the other models don't really have that same feature, but that's why I wanted this one. I know it's advertised primarily as a watch where you go camping and then, oh, at night when you see the stars, you can see the lume. That's probably not going to be the case unless you shine like a UV light on your watch, but it does look good. It is very bright. It's real nice. And again, I wish I had the light, but I don't know where my kids put it. Pro number 2, easy to read. Or I guess another way of putting that is legibility. This watch is very easy to read in terms of the watch face and the digital display because, wait for it, it's a positive display. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Casio. The hands are also extra thick, and I like that it's fairly clean on this side of the dial. And if you look really, really closely on the tips of the indices on the upper part towards the outer rim, there's like a small little white marker, which does help considering this watch is sort of on your brownish autumny tones. I guess that would be considered like warm colors. Again, I'm just talking about this model in particular. If you look at the other models, they're mostly black. And pro number 3, it's a strap. Now, I'm not really into straps, but I do want to note that this one is extremely comfortable. So if you do go out for hiking, I think this is a great choice. The PRG30 did not have a comfortable strap. That was a Pro Trek that I bought, pretty much entry level. It's very rubbery. This one, I think it's the bioresin plastic. It feels really good. It feels just like the PRW-35. This one again in brown for that outdoorsy look, but I really like how these straps feel. Okay, putting the watch back on now. I really like how these straps feel, and in terms of comfort, I can see where if you're going to be outside sweating, this to me would be an excellent choice. Just wash it off after and you're all set. And pro number 4, it's the features. I know, kind of a wild thing to say that features are like the 4th best thing about this watch, because it's a Pro Trek and it's loaded with stuff, right? It has the ABC stuff, the altimeter, barometer, and compass. I don't use these watches for those purposes. I'm not an outdoorsy kind of guy. It's great if you do need a watch like that, but personally, I don't. I am just glad it has a nice digital display, positive display. I love that it glows. That's the features that I was really more attracted to. It also has solar, 100 meters of water resist, and it has multi-band 6 for time sync. Those are also very nice features on a watch like this. But you know, when it comes to the ABC stuff, that's way too much overkill for me personally. But if you're in the market for something that does have that, this is absolutely loaded. But let's talk about those cons. Con number 1, it's the size. Man, what can I say? The PRW-61 is one of the smaller watches in the Pro Trek line, but it is borderline too big. And in all transparency, it didn't pass my "is it too big" test. And by that I mean, if I have to ask my wife, is this watch too big? It's too big. And it's too bad because I really want it to work. It is borderline on being too big, and my pass on this watch is because it's glow. I'm going to use it at night anyway indoors, so nobody else is going to see it except me. But also, if I do take it out to go hiking or outdoor things, you know, it's going to be outdoorsy, and it's okay to have oversized gear when you're outside hiking and things like that. So it also gets a pass in that sense. But if I were to wear this as like an everyday watch, just going to go grocery store or to take a walk, I would know that this watch is too big. I think a lot of it has to do with the thickness of this watch. It's a lot thicker than most of the watches that I do have, and I think that's what actually hurts it, especially in comparison to the other Pro Treks that I do have. I feel like it's a lot thicker. Maybe that's just my eye, but on the 61 model, I do feel like it's thicker, that when I'm looking at my wrist from the side view like this, it just feels a lot bigger. Size to me is quite important as someone with a smallish wrist, and this is borderline, so I just accept it as it's going to be big. This is the reason why I don't want to dive into a lot of those G-Shocks, because they start to get humongous, and I just don't like that particular look. And when I see it on other people's wrists, it's not a look that I'm okay with for myself. So although it's big, I make it work because of all the wonderful features, again, primarily easy to read and the glow features. And con number 2, it's the complexity of this watch. Now, can I really blame the watch for that? Well, no. It's a Pro Trek watch, it's loaded with things. But I will say that definitely read up on the manual if you do purchase this watch, because it's not, to me, very intuitive in how to set up. This watch is very unusual to me because it has 4 buttons, which is fine. Like a lot of Casios have 4 buttons or less, but it also has a little crown on it, which I'm like, oh, that's weird. It has a crown on it. Why would you need buttons and a crown? I get it. It has all the ABC stuff, but I'm just saying that it just seems like it's overcomplicated on the sides of the watch. Again, that might add to the size, but this is not one of those just forget it watches where it's just gonna do its thing. It does have the solar. It does have the multi-band 6. So in that sense, you can just sort of set it and forget it. But if you're not using those features, particularly the multi-band 6, and you're gonna have to manually adjust it, set different timers and things like that, it's a lot to keep track of. And to me, it's gonna be one of those watches that you're gonna have to read the manual. And I assume if you bought a watch like this, you are going to want to read the manual because you bought it for those features. Again, unless you're like me and you just want the cool lume. So I personally think that this is a great watch, especially if you are gonna get the LD version. Now it's only available in Japan, unfortunately. So if you're in the US, expect to pay a little bit more to have it shipped here, but I think that it's worth it. I love the lume on this face. It's the only watch I have that does this, right? There's no other watch that I have that has this much lume built into the face, and that's to me a huge selling point. If you're a collector, if you like Pro Trek stuff, this is what makes this LD one particularly unique. Again, it's a little bit big for me, but because I'm using it for nighttime sleep, just to, in the middle of the night, what time is it, type of thing, when I'm putting my kids to bed or when I wake up in the middle of the night, this watch for legibility is absolutely perfect. Again, I like my other Pro Treks for that too, because on the PRW-35, huge numbers, digital, huge numbers, but it does light up when you either turn your wrist or you push the light here on the bottom for the 35. But for this one, because everything is already covered in lume, you can look at it and you can see it in the dark, even if it's later throughout the night. So I think this is a great watch. I'm really glad I picked this one up and would highly recommend it. So thanks for watching.